Dolores was there, and as you know, Norina said she was not going to be a Baba lover in this lifetime.
Yeah.
There were others who would drift in and out, but basically these were older women, and I related to them in a manner where I could be helpful to them. Norina would say, "Would you go and visit Countess Doropowska, the Polish countess, or Countess?" She had a lot of title friends, and that was interesting for me. But on the other hand, I did come from a need to do human services, and so it was. I think that was really pretty much the way I could justify my life there and in general. So when I came here in 1977 to be close to Phyllis and her work, which was part of Baba's guidance when he gave me a choice, I thought to myself, now I have studied nursing. I also found the interlude with children was very refreshing, and what these both required in another state was recreditation. Was you go through a great deal of red tape when you go from state to state, and also when you have lapses of times, people want you to account for them.
Exactly.
Now in India, I did nursing, true, but I don't think it would impress anyone very much. The kind of nursing that was required of me, although just to know that you had your time filled in with nursing was good enough.
Actually, that sounded like it was pretty strenuous, the work you were doing there in India. I mean, what was the personality of that? It sounded
I was trying to just finish the thought about the older people, and then I'll tell you what I did. The older people then entered into my life as I was older. I came here in the 70s. I was already this was how many years ago? In my late 50s. Anyway, so I thought to myself, being a learning person, I really am a person that has taken advantage of all the wonderful free education of this country. And I've had a lot of free education in America. My brother's education required a great deal of sacrifice, happy sacrifice on the part of my father, because he wanted to be a physician. Now he made it, saved and helped his sons become. And then, as for myself, I entered the university in Iowa as a student, State University, and those fees are very minimal. And then where I had to earn and work hard to go through various courses on a college level was at Columbia University. And there I did work hard for a plumber, as a matter of fact, sort of like a stoker of furnaces. And then I paid for my own. But then after Columbia, which was where the fee was rather expensive and where I worked hard to be able to pay my tuition, then I was admitted to Queens General Hospital and Queens College, where they have an affiliated nursing course, which is abbreviated because I had my bachelor's degree from Iowa. I got credit, so I took it, and that was again, partly paid course by the county or the city or the state. And then at City College too in New York, where they needed more teachers, and they offered to give me credits if I would promise to teach in the New York City school system. There too, my tuition was largely paid for. So that just, now when I came here, California had a wonderful system of after 55. So I waited, I entered when I could immediately, and I took the courses which appealed to me, which would be in the Behavioral Science Human Services Department. I wanted to take psychology, but they were so overrun with students who wanted to take psychology, and that the head of the department persuaded me to take gerontology. She said, "Now look it, you're a nurse, moreover you're supervisor right now," which I was, of the older people at Miracosta. She said, "You should really take gerontology." So I did, and that was for a number of years, and I did get a very good average. I got 3.8, sort of like a challenge. Prove yourself that as you're growing older, you're not growing moribund or, or as Margaret would say, dowdy.
Yeah, it must have been very enjoyable too, because these are things that you had been working with, and it was your field, really. So
right. So that's exactly it. I did respond with enthusiasm, because I've been relating to so many older people in my life.
Yeah.
As you know, I told you I helped to care for Mildred finally in her 90s, and all of that. And I am growing older, so what it does is gives you a real perspective, and not being. Bob's emphasis is consciousness. In 1956, when we were at the Holiday Lodge in San Francisco, it was there, I believe, when Baba said that there are certain ones who must come to India, and that was and we waited, of course, many years, because what was Baba's referring to at that time, above all, was that he was going to bring about this historic meeting of the East and West, the East and West Sahavas, one of its kind. And I had a very great longing to go to India from the moment I heard of Baba, and during the period when we waited 9 years, Phyllis and I, naturally, at that time, we were waiting to meet him first, since that was the arrangement that you would meet Baba in this country. But I just was very fervent about it, And I set up a correspondence with Dr. Goer. First of all, as you know, it was my fervor was enhanced with the fact that I was doing things for India. In '52, after Baba's accident, and when Baba returned to India, there were medical needs, which I was asked to, supply. And not only that, I was able to share that with a number of people who in that way were able to serve Baba, including my brothers, as I told you. Then, after that, in '56, after the second accident, the same thing. I mean, all through the years, up to the current time, I have always been in touch about the medical needs. And when it came, I think my endeavor to actually work in India became a reality. when I concluded my nursing in 56. Yeah. And then when Baba came over here, this was made known to him. He knew very well, and he never objected. So the letters that I had were very loving on the whole. Always explaining that, that I must make the connection and do what I can, and have all those significant letters.
That's wonderful.
Would you let me?
It's interesting in some ways. All of that was just to keep the focus.
Yeah.
And the letters were there as these treasures that you didn't realize at the time were all taking place.
Oh yes, absolutely. They kept me very focused and happy. And in one way, you see, I'd been asking Baba when I first came to live with Norina. She had said to me, "If you don't marry this year, you won't marry." She probably, she was a seeress. I really feel that way. It was my feeling. And she meant that in this lifetime, with my karma, and God knows what she knows about me, she said she knew Phyllis and I before, then it was best not to marry. So when I did, it was very difficult.
Yeah.
I just didn't see, and they did, not only Norina had told me that, which of course, having told me that I wouldn't does not mean that I shouldn't.
Yes.
Of course, Baba never said that. And so I thought I was following my heart when I married, but I was following a whim. I don't discount the fact that I had a karma with George. And I found that, incidentally, you don't have to tape this part, but one of the things that Jeff didn't ask Marguerite was, you see, she was married.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that part.
I know the whole story. And it was interesting, you see. It was a little bit like mine. She had to have a feeling, an insight into herself through it, and that was it. Yeah. And she doesn't talk about it too readily. You have to get it out of her. Anyway.
No, that's.
I'm not telling you out of school.
No, I think everyone goes through inner turmoil, and this is one of the good ways to get it, bring to the surface.
So anyway, whatever. She. Let's see now. I'm talking about myself, right? I get too mixed up here. Now, pretty soon you don't know who you are. I have a letter here which I wrote on my trip to India. On my arrangement in going there, it was with a very interesting English disciple called Enid Kaur. She was one of the early ones, and she had come to live and work in New York for a while, and and she too was invited to the 1962 Sahavas. So she and I chose to go by boat, which of course is required our early departure, and the condition that Baba gave us was that if you do arrive by boat, you can come to Pune earlier. You had certain advantages. And my condition was even different, though. Not only did we arrive earlier, but Baba wanted me to arrive especially early because it was his order that I go to Navsari and work with Dr. Barucha. I said, well, not work with him, but there was work with him, actually, but I have to get my letter. Baba said, you go to Navsari and see, the idea was to see that life there.
Right, get a feeling of it.
Get a feeling for that life. And it was then that, that, of course, I will come to that and I will tell you about that. But the arrangement to go by boat meant that we would take, it was the Pacific Orient least expensive type of boat, but we went there on a very nice boat. I don't remember if it was the Queen Elizabeth or whatever it was. So we went and arrived at, where do you arrive in England? That's where I was met anyway, by Audie. And it was Monty's letter. So much better to read the letter. That's what I mean. I have to find that there. She said Baba would like you to, or maybe she, I don't know whose authority, but she said the need there, and of course I asked, I said, well, when I go to stop in England and stay with Audie and Franny, may I bring something? And there was an immediate response, oh yes, you can bring
at least,
this much.
Now that you mention it.
Someone once told me, never ask. Never ask for an order either.
Yeah.
Get them. So I did ask if I was going to be staying there too. And I was given a very long list of articles, and I arrived at the main dock there. What is that place in England? I have it somewhere. Scattered is the word, but it's there somewhere. And Audie met me, and it was a very wonderful 6-day visit, and then the same when I returned. On my return, I saw Fred Marks and other people too. Mr. Purdom invited me over, and Julia was there or not. Don't seem to remember. Audie, when he met me, he drove me home. And I slept in, they gave me Shireen's room, and Shireen was with them. They lived in a sweet little cottage. It was humble, but sweet and charming. And Franny was, she's a beautician in her home, and she offered to do some electrolysis on me. Very sweet. And dearest Franny, Audie, and Shireen, we are now in the lounge on our second day at sea. This was with Enid, listening to a selection from the Barber of Seville, which a small chamber orchestra is playing. And so I can write to you and recollect so much of the beauty of the experience throughout my blessed visit with all and each of you. Any void or vacuum is surely replenished by Baba, so that I felt the void left by the indifference of my family more than abundantly replenished with your rich friendship. The splendor of the relationship which I found lay in your inborn universality, one might say, which incidentally put me at ease. Indeed, it is true that being with beloved, by that I meant when they meet you, it's as if they've known you, all your life. Very family.
It really feels like family.
Yeah, I mean, such universality. Amazing. Indeed, it is true that being with beloved Baba's brother and family is a privilege and honor for which I was not entirely prepared. I recall always that, and never, as there was such a rich exchange of love among us all, and I can actually feel that any remnant of sadness or whatever it is just fall away. Now that I discovered so much empathy and understanding. For quite frankly, it is a fact that even among American Baba fold, never have I met with your kind of Baba love. there was a true void as a result when I parted from them. So you have been the first great highlight and major stop on my journey to God. This is going to Pune this time. There is so much to thank you for, in all truth, that I can only do it at such a leisurely time as this trip provides. There is Shireen to thank you for, a child I immediately loved more than all. I was given to hyperbole with the, you saw the Russian show there. A child I immediately loved more than all of my nieces and nephews put together.
Don't ever let them see that.
It's true. Well, but it's just that love
is wonderful.
Love is love. You shouldn't. Why simply because we immediately understood each other. Then yourselves. Just in being yourself, dear Adi, you have given me a gauge and a grasp of certain values which were still very shaky and unstable, and held too unconsciously, or held without proper intelligence. When I think that your mother was beloved Baba's mother, I am really overwhelmed at such pure conception, and the grace again to have been in your home and environment. I was not married at this time or anything, and they just gave me such a proper gauge. Of course, really Baba. Wonderful. Don't forget I'd already met Baba, though.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, it's just such a special treat.
Dear beautiful Franny is so sublimely a partner, in partnership with you. I'm so glad I said that. With you, that I can only see her as a unit, part and parcel of one another. Franny appears to have that exemplary submission to all which Baba has carved out for her. She did. Well, that was something it was very natural. I mean, he did like his brandy, and when I offered to do anything for them, he said, "Yeah, go to the store and get me some brandy." Things like that. And
made you feel like you could do something.
Yeah,
nice.
right. And of course, when they offered it to me, I don't think I really could take much of it. But I just took that as after all, my father took brandy too, an eccentricity or something of the nature. That was a trip going. Now the trip back was, I think I give you that, after I'm in India.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to go back before I even got there. Now about Adi, I think someone asked me a little about him. He said he never got accustomed to England, really. He was always waiting to go back, and nevertheless he never did. He earned enough to carry his expenses for the three of them because he had no definite trade or skill that he could use in England. Every time he undertook studies or a course of training, Baba took him on a trip in one way or another, interrupted and prevented following through. Naturally, Adi jests about this and is magnificently pliable and obedient to Baba's orders. But then his love for Baba is very inspiring, as it is gently expressed with such rare spontaneity. It was a very high privilege to be with this beautiful family of Baba's. I think actually I have Harry here. I must have written this to Harry Kenmore. Harry, are you understanding? Are you? I never heard. Well, before I close, I must tell you how concerned I am over Adi's physical state. He is not entirely well. as dear Franny pointed out to me, a projection on the top of Audie's spine that was the size of a small golf ball. It lay on one side of the spinal column close to the atlas.
Boy.
Indeed, it could be a slip disc. In addition, the entire neck area looks quite pinched. No doubt as a result of the great stress and strain of earning a miserable living in an alien country.
Yeah.
His normally well-built wide shoulders are quite pinched and narrowed and tense in appearance. I cannot describe it better than that, as I do not use your medical terms. I am trying to show you a presently existing displacement which causes Audie great pain and persistently. That's how I used to get Dr. Kenmore's attention with regard to Bob, but then of course he himself was very persistent. When you talk about persistence, you're talking about Dr. Kenmore. It's just two of a kind right now. He talks so little about it, and he's had also been informed that he has fibrositis, causing pain in his shoulders. But good Lord, the English doctors don't seem to do anything about it, for it. And poor Audie is busy with the struggle for a livelihood. Really, I found my heart breaking for Baba's own beloved brother, who can be in such straits. Now, before I went on my trip over there, I'm not even there yet, and all these things in between. But you do want to hear that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I had known Tom Riley, the father of Christine. He was a friend to Phyllis and myself before he ever met Yvonne. And he'd come to the meetings, and then Yvonne came, and eventually they became friends. But when I knew, let's see, in '62, by that time, they were married by that time. By that time, I had known that he was interested in hashish and marijuana. And when he came, he was going to depart for Spain when I was going to depart for England. And he came over with his luggage, and this story is known now, so. And he showed me how he was going, and he said, I'm going, it was just very natural. Yeah, I'm going to Spain, I have to pick up more pot, That was all very natural. So I said, really? For him it was natural. For me it was still a phenomenon. And I knew people who took pot all right. I felt that that I didn't know the ill effect of it enough. So I always told Dr. Goer about everything that puzzled me. And I said to her, there's a young man who's taking pot, and he's going to Spain to get some more. And he's taking the boat too. He didn't go on our freighter, but he went on his own trip. And when I arrived, to continue, go back just a little to England after the 6 days, we boarded the Pacific Orient liner and proceeded on a very shaky trip, I got a little seasick. Enid Corf never got seasick. Enid Corf was a very hearty English woman, very classical English, who could withstand all sorts of difficulties and had an enormous appetite. And with all of that, she weathered every kind of storm. We did enter quite a few heavy storms, and I got relatively ill, sick. I mean, slightly, not seriously. Some people in my cabin got very seriously ill, and when we had certain stopovers, we actually did see the Sphinx in Egypt and stopped at a very interesting. I think this was on the return trip, where we stopped at one of those Coptic churches, which was somehow mentioned. It was the same Coptic church, I think, that Baba visited. It was really interesting. And also Marseille, there was a church there that we stopped. These are very brief stops, but anyway, they were just kind of landmarks that apparently corresponded, one or two, especially, and also the camel ride to the Sphinx, you know.
Amazing.
That was interesting. We didn't see very longer, but it was just enough to give me some kind of an experience of maybe having been there before. When we arrived, it was, as I said, Baba's wish that first, before arranging for my stay, by this time, and that's where I'll have to read some letters, I already had the commitment and the promise of a hospital in Bombay, namely Breach Candy. It's where the Dada Charjis live. A very fine, up-to-date hospital, according to Eastern standards and Indian standards, where I would start. But it wasn't scheduled until after the Sahavas, which was November sometime. And in the meantime, I was to proceed to Navsari. And Dr. Hoshang Barucha was there to accompany me. And the interval then before the start of the Sahavas meant that we arrived in October. The Sahavas was in November. We arrived in October. We had a nice interval of time. And I went to Navsari, and I was greeted very royally. I mean, these people are so gracious. He had some kind of a little group of people meet me with garlands. I have a picture of that. I'll show you a picture. I also was very interested in how they lived. He was the chief doctor of this industrial town, and that meant that he was a very busy man. So he had asked me to bring powdered milk. I had brought a lot of things. I don't remember. For his supplies were one thing, other supplies, but what I brought, I did bring a powdered milk. And so he had us distribute it to his patients, and he had to do certain procedures, and he asked me if I would help him in the home, like catheterizations and stuff. And I was there seeing what he was doing, and going from home to home to home. And his mother and his sister, one sister, was still living. He had a sister that not too long before that had committed suicide. And there was a very typical expression of love to Baba among all these people. They just, Dr. Barucha was responsible for a lot of drawing a lot of those people to Baba.
Yeah, sure.
And in addition, they had a need to sing until early morning. The first time I had never really appreciated that expression of love that they had in song, and I loved it. I had studied music, myself. I just loved naturally. I think it's so natural to want to sing the praises of God, to sing them. It was just so natural. And they did until early morning. They just do that time and again. It was wonderful. And,
this would be Dr. Barucha and
Dr.
the family.
Barucha and, oh yeah,
everybody. And so everybody that was there. All his patients.
Dozens of people. Well, some were not sick. They didn't have to be. But this is the town where Mansari came from.
Right.
You understand? And there were some very distinguished Baba lovers there that I met. Authors and some very distinguished people. But you know how they live, you know how the Indians live. Right. They live very humble and simple. I just enjoyed it very much. And then we returned, of course, for the Sahavas. And as soon as we got there, Baruch and I and a third boy, his brother, incidentally, Baruch's brother used to take me on a motorcycle. I used to sit on that motorcycle, go whiz on. Wait a minute, where are you going? Anyway, when we returned there, we got right away, Baba wants to see you. See, no, Phyllis had not arrived yet. She's my roommate. And, we still were early, real grace, right?
Exactly.
And so we came, and Baba wanted to see us both. Said, do you know Tom Riley? Yes, Baba, I do. What do you know about him? So, he knew what I told Goer. All right. I have told Tom, Baba said, Baba was very strict, that if he dares to take any of this marijuana, whatever Baba called it, drug, he will lose my demand and he must go back immediately. So you and Dr. Barucha have to be watchdogs. Well, didn't Tom like that? No, not one bit. Especially me. It was years before he could look me square in the eye.
This is wonderful.
But so because he knew. Well, first of all, once he gained his real balance, he'd know that it's not because I told Goer. No. Anyone would know. Just looking at his eyes, it was so glazed. He's a very good artist, that. Yeah. Miniature. And he's the one who told Lynn. See, I knew these people from Woodstock, which was an art colony. Yeah. And I used to be the guest of Maya, who lived there. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't one of the Woodstock artists at all, but I did have artist friends, quite a few from New York. You always do.
Yeah.
And
they were the ones who told Lynn about Papa.
Oh yeah, they're the ones definitely that told Phyllis, and they're beholden to. That's why they're so fond of them.
Yeah.
And so Baba said, I want you to make sure, because he has, what you call it when you draw away from something? You give up the drug, then you have
a withdrawal
symptoms, and he did. He got sick a little, and just make sure, just watch and take care of him. I don't think Baba used the word watchdog, I'm using the word, but Baba said, just be there to help him, or, since there might be these withdrawals. But that wasn't the end of my connection in that situation. My other connection was to give him messages that were sent, and also gave him a very important message. As a matter of fact, which years later he wrote and asked me what it was again. Bob, not because of me, but because what did Baba say, exactly, Well, when he went back, I think he did give it up totally 100%. He did have some medical treatment, and he was the first one. The reason I'm telling that story is that it was through Tom Riley that Baba worked so strongly, and that was the first time. That was the first one that Baba started to see what this drug was producing.
And that was early, that was in 62.
62. Yeah. Well, Tom's rationalization was that it made him, he would often say, well, my imagination is triggered me so he could paint better. Well, that's such a delusion because it didn't have spiritual depth. In New York, I had a dear friend whose mother was a literary Russian woman, and it just seemed so natural that she would, in reading Baba, which she did, if she a little bit wasn't a real devotee, if she would want to translate some of these for me, and I selected various things like The New Humanity, a couple of poems by Mani, a biographical sketch, and I have that, of course. And I said, would you translate this? And then I got permission from Baba. I got the copyright from Audi, plus a photo. I got all that, what was required. And I had, I don't know, maybe 100 copies made. And that was with Baba's permission. So he said he wanted them when I arrived. And when these little booklets were brought to Baba, he gave them to Mani. She was there too. Just when Francis, it was Francis who drove me to Baba, and in the Guru Prasad, and Mani was there, and Baba said, Mani will take care of this, and some of these will go to the Russian consulate in New Delhi. And he named that aviator who lived in New Delhi as the one who should bring it. I don't read Russian, nor do I speak Russian.
No.
I did try to study it a little. Norina wanted me to learn a little with her friend, Princess Islavina. She was a very lovely lady. The very last of the Georgians, very distinguished family. And of course, Norina's husband, Prince Machiavelli, was a Georgian. So Islavina lived on Madison Avenue, very humble, very simple. And she had, her guest roomers were some other titled people. But she just catered to them. When I would come to see her, she would serve me as if she were my mother. She'd come out. She was a very buxom lady, quite, substantial and so humble. She just said, eat some more.
Really
just like
kind
very
personality.
Indian in that respect.
That's nice.
Always trying to feed.
Always trying more food.
In that respect, she was very. She would be interested in Baba. That's why Norina used to send me there to see how she was, talk to her. I had one dear friend who welcomed me to India because when she was a physical therapist studying at either New York University, Bellevue Institute. She was very good. We became friends. Somehow we became friends. She was definitely Hindu, but intelligent Brahmin, probably. You know, her father was a physician. But she said, "Oh, you must come and stay with me." Well, believe it or not, I did. When I first came, because I had to stay somewhere in order to find out which hospital I would be acceptable to.
Right.
See, Bridge, I stayed with her for several days. Very nice, very typical Hindu family. Very
It must have been a nice experience because she would have known you and then she made you feel completely at home.
Right, and she came to a meeting in Bombay. Because she lived in Bombay, came to a Baba meeting. Because she heard Baba got back too. Well then, I went to Breach Candy, and I just, I'm all prepared to settle there. And the head nurse or administrator said, "Oh, fine, now your credentials." "Yes, and you are a midwife." "Midwife? No. I didn't know you had to be a midwife." "Yes." You aren't a full-fledged nurse unless you're a midwife. You're not a sister. You have to be a midwife to be on the level that we have promised you. See, they did promise me something rather decent in terms of room and board and some stipend.
Yeah.
And so that was the first shock.
Right.
When Dr. Burgess said, "Don't worry, we'll find a way." And we went to Dr. and Sarosh, knew the head administrator of Wadia Maternity Hospital in Parel, which is next door to Dada, right where she lives. And it's an industrial town. And so Sarosh, very confidently goes into the administrator and come in, real confident. And of course, yes, you are now just a nurse of this degree, and if you wish to be one of because I came with the intention of really residing in India for many years, if not forever. Mm-hmm. You will study midwifery, and so we have a course. Just enter the course, and so they had, it's a dorm, it's part of the hospital dorm, and I moved in, and it wasn't too bad actually, when you consider how people lived out there in the shacks. No, it wasn't too bad. It's just the smell was very prominent because of the failure of the plumbing, the latrines and all was so open. So I entered and began the course in midwifery, and the English had left, and so everything was taught by the native Indians,
right,
who some of them had fairly good training, but on the other hand, that was not intolerable. I'll tell you what was intolerable. That was not intolerable because it was taught in English for the most part, as I remember. They may have also, made side remarks in Marathi, but the English was what they taught, and it became something that was, plausible that I might finish there. What became intolerable, though, was that I had studied a little Hindi in America, and then I had to continue studying, and they said, well, what's the good, if you're expert in Hindi, true, you probably can pick up Marathi, but these people, they are so uncultured, and all your patients don't have any education. Marathi is what they speak, so study Marathi. No, how you going to study Marathi at my age. A child between 3 and 5 has the capacity of genius for languages. But, you know, when you're grown up, especially there are no roots, no Germanic, Latin, all these roots, Sanskrit, Persian. So I was having a time, and of course, you know, it became a bit of a joke to some of the nurses too. What are you saying, Adele? And they weren't too ready to sit back. And I could read the envy on them because, after all, you know, he's from America, and you know, I didn't act that way. I acted very humble. They wore saris. I wore my simple white uniform and all that. And but on the other hand, it was the patients that, you know, that made me so totally frustrated. They would try to tell me something, and this is a maternity hospital. And the other thing that frustrated me was the enormous lack of care for the premature. And the deprived, and you know, the very lowest class always have many more premature babies because they're undernourished. You've got to write to Baba.